Andre the Giant once consumed 119 beers in 6 hours. Richard Burton downed 3 bottles of vodka before noon and still performed Hamlet flawlessly. Oliver Reed won a drinking contest against 5 Navy sailors, paid his $450 bar tab in advance, and died 2 hours later. These aren't exaggerated tales from Hollywood's rumor mill. They're documented facts about some of entertainment's biggest stars who battled alcohol addiction so severe it defined their careers, destroyed their bodies, and in many cases, ended their lives decades too soon. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Vintage Uncovered for more untold Hollywood stories. Andre the Giant. Andrei Roussimoff, known worldwide as Andre the Giant, stands as perhaps the most legendary drinker in documented history. Even the numbers surrounding his consumption aren't folklore. They're verified accounts from wrestlers, promoters, and bartenders who witnessed them firsthand. Standing 7 feet 4 inches and weighing over 500 pounds, Andre's relationship with alcohol was born from medical necessity, not recreation. His acromegaly, a disorder causing abnormal growth due to excess growth hormone, created a body that lived in constant agony. Every joint, every bone, every muscle bore weight they were never designed to carry. In an era before modern pain management, alcohol became Andre's only reliable analgesic. Wrestling promoters budgeted an additional $1,000 per city exclusively for Andre's bar tabs. This wasn't generosity, it was operational necessity. One evening in Kansas City, Andre accumulated a $40,000 tab buying rounds for an entire hotel. So he would position himself at bars built for average-sized humans, the furniture audibly creaking under his massive frame, consuming beer after beer while showing minimal outward effects. The stories from his fellow wrestlers paint a poignant picture. Andre would sometimes pass out in hotel lobbies, his pain temporarily numbed, but his body immovable. Security personnel couldn't relocate him. His weight made it physically impossible. Their solution was pragmatic and sad. Drape a piano cover over him and let him sleep where he fell. But Andre's drinking transcended physical pain management. He understood his prognosis. Doctors informed him in his 20s that his enlarged heart would fail prematurely. Every drink represented borrowed time, a temporary escape from the knowledge that he wouldn't see old age. He died in 1993 at age 46. Alone in a Paris hotel room, his heart finally unable to pump blood through his enormous body. The man who entertained millions died exactly as predicted, decades before his time. Mickey Rourke, Philip Andre. Mickey Rourke possessed the kind of classical good looks that made him a Hollywood fixture in the 1980s. His performances in Diner and 9½ Weeks showcased both talent and marketability. Then he systematically dismantled both his face and career through a combination of alcohol and professional boxing. In 1991, Rourke abandoned acting for boxing, a decision fueled partly by alcohol-induced bravado. He would arrive at matches already intoxicated, taking punches that progressively disfigured his face. The drinking made him unemployable in Hollywood. Directors would discover him unconscious in his trailer at midday, surrounded by empty bottles. By the late 1990s, the actor who once dated supermodels lived in a $500 per month apartment. His face bore the cumulative damage of poor surgical decisions and repeated trauma. Most nights ended with him drinking until unconscious, waking with no memory of how he'd gotten home. His 2008 comeback role in The Wrestler wasn't acting, it was autobiography. Rourke played a broken-down fighter attempting to reclaim past glory, essentially portraying himself. He reportedly cried between takes, recognizing his own story in the script. The performance earned him an Academy Award nomination and renewed career opportunities, though the physical damage from his lost years remained permanent. Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr.'s introduction to substances came from his father, filmmaker Robert Downey Sr., who gave his 8-year-old son marijuana at a party. By age 22, Downey was using cocaine in bathrooms between Saturday Night Live sketches. He later described his addiction as having a loaded gun in my mouth and I like the taste of metal. The 1990s brought a cascade of arrests. He broke into a neighbor's house and passed out in their bed. Police found him walking barefoot through Los Angeles, hallucinating. Another arrest revealed cocaine, heroin, and a .357 Magnum in his vehicle. Each mugshot documented his progressive deterioration. Producers fired him from Ally McBeal after he was found wandering hotel hallways in his underwear, too intoxicated to locate his room. Insurance companies refused to cover him. Friends wouldn't allow him near their children. His career seemed permanently finished. Our prison provided the catalyst for change, not his first incarceration, nor his second, but his third. Something shifted in 2003. Downey credits a combination of therapy, martial arts, and his wife Susan with maintaining his sobriety. The studios that had blacklisted him cast him as Iron Man in 2008, launching a comeback worth billions. He keeps his old mugshots in his office as daily reminders. Every Marvel film he makes is built on the foundation of choosing not to take that first drink each morning. Richard Harris. Richard Harris discovered a Hawaiian cocktail made with rum, Cointreau, and grenadine during the filming of Hawaii that sent him into the street, attempting to direct traffic with his fists. His daily consumption followed a rigid schedule: 2 bottles of vodka, followed by a bottle of brandy. It concluded with a bottle of port each night. Every single day, the drinking erased significant portions of his memory and finances. He received a Rolls-Royce as payment for a film, parked it in a New York garage, and completely forgot its existence. 25 years later, he discovered an old photograph that triggered his memory. The accumulated parking fees exceeded $92,000. In 1981, doctors gave him 18 months to live. His liver was failing, his kidneys were shot, and he was vomiting blood regularly. Harris threw himself a 3-day goodbye party at his favorite London pub, ordering 2 bottles of 1947 Chateau Margaux at £500 each. Then he quit completely. He maintained total sobriety for 10 years. In 1991, Harris decided 1 pint of Guinness wouldn't hurt. That pint became a nightly ritual. Although he never returned to his vodka brandy port regimen, he died in 2002 from Hodgkin's disease. Surprisingly, not liver failure. His decade of sobriety likely added years to his life. Peter O'Toole. Peter O'Toole's drinking reached such legendary status that he and actor Peter Finch attempted to buy an entire bar when refused after hours service. They wrote a check on the spot. But O'Toole's most disturbing admission was that he couldn't remember an entire decade of his life. The 1960s were completely gone from his memory. He remembered the decade's beginning and end, but nothing in between. Oscar-nominated performances, iconic films, Shakespeare on stage, all accomplished while so intoxicated he retained zero memory of doing any of it. Directors learned quickly. Film O'Toole's scenes before noon or abandon the attempt. During the ruling class, the studio built him a private bar on set for containment purposes. They caught him on television at a racetrack, whiskey in hand, 5 minutes after claiming he needed to rehearse in his trailer. In the mid-1970s, doctors opened him up and found his stomach dissolving. Their message was unambiguous. One more drink means death. O'Toole quit immediately and maintained sobriety for nearly 40 years. He called it the toughest role I ever played. He lived to 81, outliving most doctors who had written him off. Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins woke up in Phoenix, Arizona in 1975 with blood on his hands and no memory of the previous 48 hours. He'd driven from Los Angeles in a complete blackout. He sat in his car for hours, waiting for police sirens that never came. That morning presented two options: quit drinking or end his life. There was no third option. Hopkins had been drinking since age 19, consuming 2 bottles of scotch daily by his 30s. He would appear at theater performances so intoxicated he'd improvise entire plays. Directors fired him repeatedly. His first wife left him. He would wake in unfamiliar locations with no recollection of arrival. The Phoenix incident was his breaking point. The inability to know what he'd done during those lost 48 hours was unbearable. On December 29, 1975, he attended his first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and never touched alcohol again. Sobriety didn't just save his life, it transformed his art. 15 years later, he won an Oscar for The Silence of the Lambs, playing a character with absolute control, the opposite of who he'd been. And now in his 80s, he's been sober for 50 years and is a 2-time Academy Award winner. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando transformed Mutiny on the Bounty into a $6 million disaster in 1962. The 3-month shoot extended to 8 months because Brando would disappear for days. He'd arrive intoxicated, refuse to follow the script, and improvise whatever entered his mind, forcing crews to film his ramblings and edit them into coherence. By the 1970s, his behavior escalated. During the Missouri breaks, Brando appeared wearing a dress, playing his gunslinger character however he wanted, while completely ignoring the script. Studios began factoring in massive delays and cost overruns specifically for hiring him. During The Godfather, Brando needed cue cards taped everywhere, on other actors, on props, beyond scenery, just to deliver basic dialogue. The man who'd revolutionized acting could barely remember his lines. His weight ballooned as roles dried up. Brando didn't just burn bright, he burned out completely. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart treated drinking like employment. Whiskey for breakfast, gin at lunch, scotch until he passed out. Every single day. He'd arrive at Hollywood parties nursing a scotch and soda, appearing controlled, then pick fights for entertainment by midnight. On Warner Brothers sets in the late 1930s and early 1940s, Bogart would arrive with hangovers so severe he looked half dead. Yet he'd nail every take, delivering perfect performances while still drunk from the previous night. He was suspended 11 times for confrontations with studio bosses, usually while holding a glass. During The African Queen, Bogart and director John Huston transformed the Congo shoot into a drinking marathon, passing whiskey bottles between takes in jungle heat, completely intoxicated while attempting to film. By his 50s, decades of constant drinking destroyed him internally. Cancer took him at 57. His last words, "I should never have switched from scotch to martinis." Even dying, he was thinking about his next drink. Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf's father gave him a joint at age 10, teaching him that reality was something to escape. By the time he starred in Transformers, he was escaping constantly. In 2014, he disrupted a Broadway performance of Cabaret, smoking cigarettes in the theater and grabbing actor Alan Cummings' backside during the show. Security removed him while he screamed about being in the CIA. In 2017, he went on a racist rant against a black officer during a public intoxication arrest, all captured on body camera. He told the officer he was going to hell because of his skin color. The viral video destroyed what remained of his reputation. His ex-girlfriend, FKA Twigs, later alleged he arrived drunk at her hotel room and choked her, then headbutted her the next morning, still intoxicated. LaBeouf entered court-ordered rehab in 2017 and claimed sobriety since. Whether Hollywood will forgive remains uncertain. John Barrymore. John Barrymore's friends stole his corpse from the morgue and propped it in Errol Flynn's house as a prank. When Flynn came home and saw his old drinking buddy in his favorite chair, he poured them both whiskey. It took minutes to realize Barrymore wasn't passed out. He was dead? Once considered America's greatest Shakespearean actor, by age 50, Barrymore couldn't remember his lines. He'd stumble on stage clutching a flask, yelling, "Line," during Hamlet's soliloquy. His seated performances weren't artistic choices. He was too drunk to stand. One night in 1934, he forgot he was playing Hamlet and started reciting Macbeth instead. They dropped the curtain after 10 minutes of chaos. His drinking started young, stealing sips from wine glasses as a child. By his 20s, 2 bottles of rum daily. By his 40s, he'd added whiskey and gin. His liver became so damaged, doctors could feel it through his skin, hard as rock. In 1942, Barrymore collapsed mid-sentence while rehearsing Romeo and Juliet on radio. Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage purchased a pyramid tomb in New Orleans for $61,000 while drunk, believing it would help him become immortal. That same year, he bought 15 mansions, a private island, and a collection of shrunken heads, burning through $150 million while intoxicated most nights. His financial advisor testified that Cage would call at 3 a.m., slurring demands to buy European castles he'd never seen. In 2011, New Orleans police found him screaming in a French Quarter, so drunk he couldn't remember which house was his. He'd been arguing with his wife about their residence, then challenged officers to arrest him while wearing his own blood from punching cars. His son, Weston, had to bail him out. By 2009, he owed the IRS $14 million and was accepting any role offered. 5 films a year, sometimes 6, most going straight to video. Directors reported he'd arrive drunk, do 1 take, and leave. But the man who once commanded $20 million per film was working for $1 million, most going directly to creditors. Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed won a drinking contest against 5 British Navy sailors in 1999, then died 2 hours later. The 61-year-old actor had consumed over 100 pints of beer at a Malta pub while filming Gladiator. After beating men 40 years younger, Reed arm-wrestled the bartender, won, then suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed. His final bar tab was $450, which he'd paid in advance. Reed's entire life prepared him for that last drink. He'd consumed 126 pints in 24 hours just to see if it was possible. His record stood until his death. Directors filmed him drunk because sober Oliver Reed was harder to work with. Anxiety made him violent, while alcohol made him manageable. Ridley Scott kept a bar in Reed's trailer during Gladiator, knowing it was the only way to get him on set. The production spent $3 million creating a digital Oliver Reed to finish his scenes, using shadows, body doubles, and computer graphics. Even dead, he was more profitable than most living actors. Robin Williams. Robin Williams was doing cocaine with John Belushi the night before Belushi died. Williams left the Chateau Marmont at 3 a.m. on March 5, 1982, hours before his friend overdosed in the same bungalow. That morning changed everything. Williams quit cocaine immediately and stayed clean for 20 years, terrified he'd end up like his friend. Alcohol was harder to quit. Williams called it the slow knife, less dramatic than cocaine, but equally deadly. He'd drink alone after performances, trying to quiet the thousands of voices and characters in his head. His first wife said he became a different person when drunk. Mean, depressed, the opposite of the manic joy he showed the world. His 2003 relapse started innocently, one beer at a friend's house. Within a week, he was drinking a bottle of whiskey nightly. His family staged an intervention in 2006, and he went to rehab. But the real demon wasn't substances. It was the Lewy body dementia slowly destroying his brain, causing hallucinations, paranoia, and depression that no amount of sobriety could fix. On August 11, 2014, Williams hanged himself in his California home. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn injected vodka into oranges with a syringe when directors banned alcohol from sets. The swashbuckling star of Robin Hood would consume 15 of these spiked fruits before lunch. He'd then fence with real swords while the room spun. His Mulholland Drive mansion hosted such wild parties that neighbors called it Cirrhosis by the Sea. Flynn hung that name on a sign by his pool. Every morning started with champagne in bed, his breakfast of champions. By noon, rum. By evening, vodka. Warner Brothers assigned him a full-time handler whose only job was keeping him upright during filming. During They Died with Their Boots On, Flynn fell off his horse 7 times in one day. The director finally tied him to the saddle with hidden ropes. Flynn found this hilarious and demanded more vodka to celebrate. Richard Burton. Richard Burton drank 3 bottles of vodka before noon and still performed Hamlet's entire 3-hour soliloquy from memory. Directors called him the most functional alcoholic in theater history. He'd consume enough alcohol to kill most men, then deliver performances that made critics weep. The Welsh coal miner's son started drinking at 12, stealing sips from his father's flask before school. By 30, he needed a bottle to stop his hands from shaking. By 40, he was spending $1,000 daily on alcohol. He famously said, "I've been drunk for 20 years, and I'm a happy alcoholic." But the happiness was performance. Friends found him crying in his dressing room, begging the bottle to leave him alone, then pouring another drink. His body rebelled during the shoot of 1984. He hemorrhaged on set, blood pouring from his mouth mid-scene. Doctors found his liver had essentially melted, his kidneys were failing, and his brain showed signs of wet brain syndrome. Burton refused treatment, saying he'd rather die than live sober. He got his wish on August 5, 1984, dying from a brain hemorrhage at 58. His last words requested vodka. The nurse gave him water. He knew the difference and refused to drink it. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift avoided Hollywood's party scene entirely. While other stars got wasted at premieres, Clift stayed completely sober, viewing drinking as the enemy of great acting. For over a decade, it worked. He became one of Hollywood's biggest names. Then 1956 happened. His car wrapped around a telephone pole, and a crash destroyed his face. Surgeries put him back together, but the pain never stopped. For the first time in his life, Clift started drinking, not socially, but chasing oblivion. Alcohol became the only thing that could silence the agony doctors couldn't fix. The collapse was fast and brutal. Within months, Hollywood's most disciplined actor became its biggest train wreck. He'd arrive at film sets with flasks in every pocket, mixing booze and painkillers. Directors shot his scenes before noon because after that he was gone. On The Misfits, it got so bad that Marilyn Monroe had to literally hold him up during scenes, two broken stars barely staying upright. Clift died at 45 from a heart attack, but everyone knew what really killed him. 10 years of drinking that erased a lifetime of discipline. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner learned to drink moonshine behind tobacco barns in North Carolina at age 13. By the time she hit Hollywood, she could outdrink men twice her size while wearing high heels and diamonds. Frank Sinatra called her the love of his life. She turned every night into a battlefield between bottles and broken hearts. Her drinking sessions were legendary demolitions. She'd start with champagne at lunch, move to martinis by 3, and finish with straight bourbon until dawn. During Night of the Iguana in 1964, she convinced director John Huston to abandon shooting for a tequila contest. They drank until both walked fully clothed into the Pacific Ocean, ruining thousands of dollars in costumes. The crew found them the next morning passed out on the beach. The stories worsened as she aged. Guards at the Ritz in Madrid found her urinating in the lobby fountain at 3 a.m. She threw a champagne bottle at a photographer, missing his head by inches. Her apartments were war zones of empty bottles and broken mirrors. She'd drink until she couldn't remember which husband she'd divorced or which lover she'd destroyed. Gardner died at 67. Her once perfect face ravaged by decades of alcohol. Michael Landon. Michael Landon played America's perfect father on Little House on the Prairie while mixing vodka into his morning coffee at 6 a.m. The man millions trusted to teach their children values was secretly consuming 4 packs of cigarettes and a 5th of whiskey daily. His makeup artist would spray perfume on him between takes to mask the alcohol seeping through his pores. Painkillers started after a horse riding accident in 1973. Landon discovered that Percodan mixed with scotch made him feel invincible. He'd direct episodes while so intoxicated crew members had to remind him what scene they were shooting. His wife, Lynn, found hidden bottles everywhere, behind books, in toilet tanks, buried in the yard. She'd pour them out, he'd buy more. The cycle repeated for 15 years. His body gave out at 54. The diagnosis was pancreatic cancer, but his liver was already failing. Doctors said the combination of alcohol, cigarettes, and pills had turned his organs into scar tissue. Near the end, Landon admitted to a nurse that he'd been drunk for most of his children's childhoods. They remembered a father who smelled like cologne and slurred bedtime stories. The wholesome patriarch of television died in 1991, 3 months after diagnosis. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor hurled a glass of champagne into Richard Burton's face at the Dorchester Hotel, then ordered another bottle and threw that too. Their relationship ran on alcohol the way cars run on gasoline. Remove it, and everything stopped working. They'd drink through breakfast, fight through lunch, make love through dinner, and then start the cycle again. Burton called her Ocean because she could drink an ocean of vodka and still stand. Taylor's drinking started as medicine for back pain from a horse riding accident. 1 glass of whiskey became 2, then 10. Then she stopped counting. By the time she met Burton on the Cleopatra set, she was hiding bottles in her wigs. Their first date lasted 48 hours and involved draining the bar at the Chateau de Madrid. After Burton died, Taylor finally faced her demons. She checked into Betty Ford in 1983, the first celebrity to publicly admit she needed help. She emerged 7 weeks later and became one of Hollywood's most powerful AIDS activists, using the same energy she'd put into drinking to raise millions for research. She stayed mostly sober for her last 20 years, proving that even Hollywood's most legendary drinkers could find redemption when they finally decided to stop.